Well, before we start officially, I'll tell you about dots, all right? Because it's very hard to make good dots. And a dear friend of mine, now deceased, Ainsley Mears, who was Australia's greatest psychiatrist, travelled throughout the world, and he said the symbolism of the pagoda was very, very interesting, because he said it symbolises man's most loved object, which is the woman's breast. Right? So I was thinking about this as I'm actually doing all these dots. You see, not so much here, but a lot of them have dots and so forth, and usually have a dot and something round, which is. I'm just today looking at a book. You know what Enso is? No. Enso is the Japanese Zen Buddhist thing that they draw a circle. And it's just how they draw the circle. It's a whole mishigas about the whole thing. But the fascinating thing, the author of this book, who has been studying this for years and years, says this one has a dot in the middle of the circle, and we don't know why the dot is there. Well, I think that's interesting. The dot and part of the circle is really the very essence of it all. So that's why we have a whole dot series been going on for some little time now. So I used to be a doctor many years ago until I became a healer. That change really started about 50 years ago, and it started in my first week in medicine when I was in neurosurgery, and there were two young men, both 24, both paralysed from the waist down in car accidents. Both at the same time were given by the hospital an infection. Hospitals are quite generous with this. And they were given the same antibiotic, and in 1 week, one was healed and one was dead. And I said to my supervisor, what's the difference? Why? He said, well, some have got it and some haven't got it. And the one that recovered was always bright and cheerful, getting on with life. The other just complained. So the stress of the same infection, one succumbed and one easily survived. So I realized then that this what I started to call life energy, was far more important than the antibiotics, though everything has a place. So I started off there, it's back in it's exactly 50 years ago this year. I started back, in fact, almost exactly now. I started back then looking at what is this it. And over time, that's what I've been looking at intensely, how to increase a person's desire to really, really be healthy. Just think of this. We have two alternatives. They both start with E. We can embrace life with a capital E, or we can escape from life with a small e. Now, to embrace life means I enthusiastically, passionately, wholeheartedly, and gratefully embrace all my life. Want to try it? Go on. I enthusiastically, passionately, wholeheartedly, and gratefully embrace all my life. And most of us are lying when we say it, aren't we? Right. Okay. So that's what I'm. So I realised that my work had to be more to do with this than just straight out medicine or psychiatry or whatever it may be. And so more and more over the years, over many years, I've included virtually all the arts in my practice, as some of you know. Music, dance, painting, some sculpture, photography, of course. Did I leave out anything? What? Poetry and literature. We try to incorporate all of this as ways of raising people's own life energy so that they can start to heal themselves, because the true healing comes from within. All the healer does is help the person to heal themselves. And this led on to doing more and more. I've done not exactly these, but like this for many, many years, and I never thought of doing much with them. I've encouraged people to do them, but I never sort of thought to put them out. Now, one of the great doctors of the 19th century said that as a physician gets older, his work should change from dealing with individual patients to trying to make a difference with society. In fact, I was just reading today about as a Zen master would get older, he would stop lecturing, he would stop teaching, and he would just draw. The whole idea being that these, used correctly, can raise your life energy and more people's life energy than I can do in individual sessions. So this is a chance of putting things out further into the world, particularly at the moment with how everyone feels about whatever the economic state is, or whatever word you want to use for it. And so that's the purpose, that there is, but the one thing is you just can't rattle them off. They have to be done in a meditative state. Otherwise they just become any other art. So all of these are done in a meditative state before I paint, and I really have very little idea of what they will turn out like until they're finished. So I'm aware of painting them. On the other hand, I'm not. And you ask about the dots. Who asked? Well, the dots make themselves. So there's no accidents. You know, if a dot falls there, if the paintbrush falls there, if that happens there, that's what it was supposed to be. The whole thing is some sort of guidance system or something rather, and what appears is just what appears. But I'll tell you something, another thing too. I used to look at paintings, whether they're my own or someone else, and stop when they were finished. Let me explain. I worked once with a very famous artist, and his two eyes weren't balanced. So everything he painted was a very low energy, but when we blanked off about this much on all the right sides of them all, the energy was much, much higher because his eyes weren't balanced. So I used to look at getting a painting or a piece of music or something balanced. Now what normally happens, the artist finishes it, he says, it's done, it seems balanced to me, which may be right or may be wrong. The next thing he does is he signs it. And as soon as he signs it, he's unbalanced the whole painting. So he had to work out a way how to sign him on the back. What, sorry? Oh yeah, so then, but then I realized that I was deliberately not finishing the paintings. That they're left with a particular, they are balanced in one sense, in another sense they're not, because they are, that bit is left for the viewer to fill in. Right? And I know from experience, every person fills in at the same place. Because as where it's finished, it's left for you to do some work, which makes you an active participant in it.